Welcome back to TSPN. I'm here with Rabbi Greg Lukovsky for our final viewing, final matchup. So we have the final four into the championship. We're going to get all of the results out now. Some of you, your brackets are already busted, but for some of you, there's still who's going to emerge as the winner of the first ever TST Biblical March Madness, both the Torah character and the congregant who submitted a bracket. Rabbi Greg, how are you doing?
Wow, this has been a really crazy March. I mean, really, this is what March Madness is all about. These have not been easy decisions. And, as we talk about the final four and the final characters and, the whole process, Rabbi Danny, I really tried to look at the character. Your instructions were look at the values, look at the character as a whole, and really look at Torah, not necessarily Tanakh and not necessarily Midrash. So for me, I really tried to dive into the stories. I think there may be some surprises. There have already been some surprises, but I think there may be some surprises coming into the semifinals and looking at who the championship is. As great as these characters are, so many of them they are human after all, have these flaws that, had to be considered throughout the process. So it's been really exciting. I really looking forward to the final four and the final championship.
As we embark on this, I do want to say thank you again to you for kind of jumping into this with us. And again, I can't imagine just looking at the list of characters that you had from the very beginning to whittle it down and down and down. These are some tough choices that you've had to make. And what I really appreciate is you've given us a chance to talk about Torah, you and I, and for our community to learn about Torah and some of these figures that we might not spend that much time studying, but actually think about what they do and how they do it. And again, the values and stories that we can take from it. So I'm grateful to you for the time you've taken. And just a recap, it's Moses against Miriam, Joseph against Yitro. Who's going to make it from the final four to the championship? Let's jump straight in. Brother, sister, Moses, Miriam, who's it going to be?
In the beginning, this looks like a very close matchup. You're talking again about Moshe Rabbeinu, the character, the person who is the only one who got to really see the divine in many ways face to face, the greatest prophet there ever was, the leader of the Jewish people, just an amazing person to look up to, while at the same time, very flawed. We know that Moses, in some ways, had some issues with his anger, where he struck the rock, with his patience, where he struck down the Egyptian taskmaster. Justified or not, we know that based on some of his actions, he was forbidden or not allowed to enter into the promised land. So as amazing and as great as Moshe Rabbeinu is, there were some flaws to his character that teach us what it means to be human, what it means to live a life of Jewish value. On the other side of that bracket is his sister, Miriam. And if you really look at the character of Miriam in the Torah, I tried and looked like with Moses to see where some of those flaws might be. But in the end, and I'm giving this away now, Miriam is a strong presence for the Jewish people throughout the wilderness. Just at that moment, right, when the Jewish people and the Israelites needed to celebrate and sing and dance and not move forward, that's what Miriam comes in. What she represents in that family and what she represents for the Jewish people, I believe in the values that she brought in the end, wins out over her brother Moses. So Miriam, the prophetess, will indeed be making it in to the finals.
I mean, we've had upsets along the way, but the 5 books of Moses, as we even call it, and he doesn't make it through to the final, might be one of the biggest upsets, even at this late stage with only 4 competitors left. And I think that's a really good shout. And Miriam is a wonderful character for us to think about. And now the all-important question, who is she facing in that final? Is it going to be Joseph or is it going to be Yitro?
This one was also very, very close. And as we spoke about before, I think Joseph has a lot to teach us about character, about transformation, about change from sort of what it means to be a child and moving into adulthood and family dynamics. And yet you could dig deeper into the story and see some of the flaws within Joseph. Should he have just revealed himself to the brothers instead of going through a whole ruse and making them go back? Should he have just revealed and said, look, it's me, your brother, go get Abba, go get dad and bring him to Egypt so we can celebrate? So one can really, when you get into the finals here and you get into these semifinals, we're really nitpicking here. But again, some flaws within the Joseph character, very much to teach us about what it means to be a human being and leadership. And on the other side, you have Yitro. And again, I talked about this before, the affinity for obviously my bar mitzvah portion. And in the end, Yitro is a constant leader in the, I see you're looking in the upsets. You feel like the upset might be coming here, Rabbi Danny. And indeed, I'll just rip it off. It is Yitro is going to defeat Joseph. The idea of what it means to truly speak truth to power and stand up to Moses. And I believe that without that moment in Jewish history, I'm not sure what would have happened, right? Really bringing Moses to that point. And by the way, making sure that Moses is reunited with his family, bringing Tzipporah back into the fold. Yitro, perhaps some might see this as an upset, moving on to the finals against the great prophetess, great prophet Miriam.
So that's our championship game is set. And while each week up to now with each of the contests, we've kind of gone back and forth, we're going to go straight into that championship because I think everyone wants to know Miriam against Yitro. Fascinating matchup. Who's going to emerge victorious and be crowned the first biblical March Madness champion of Temple Shir Tikva?
You know, Rabbi Danny, this was not easy. And in some ways, even going into this conversation, I knew who the finals would be. And in some ways, I've gone back, in a lot of ways, I've gone back and forth between Miriam and Yitro. For me, and I'll take a half a step back, we just talked about this. I tried to look at the characters based on what you've asked me to, the values that they bring to the table, their complete picture in the Torah, and also in a way, some characters, I'm not going to say that we gloss over, but that we think we know a lot about, and would give us the opportunity to sort of dive in and study about a little more. This was not an easy one. I've talked about this before. I think Yitro's leadership in the Torah is a model for all of us. I mean, yes, he's an outsider and a non-Israelite, but the way in which he welcomes Moses, the way he brings Moses' wife and his children back into the fold, as if to remind Moses that he's still a dad and he's still a husband who, even though he's leading the Jewish people, and what he brings to to the conversation, and that moment where he taps Moses on his shoulder and says, "You can't do this alone. Like, you need help," and really pushing Moses to appoint the first of the judges and the helping of the leadership. On the other side of the bracket, I think you have, for me, one of the greatest characters in Jewish history, Miriam. The sister of Aaron and Moses, who brings, I think, the heart and the soul to Torah and the Jewish people. I mean, again, I think about that moment on the other side of the shores of the sea, just when they were exhausted and just when, things couldn't even, look, they're just tired. And she sees that moment as an opportunity to lift up our souls, lift up our spirits. I think, throughout Jewish history, the representation of water, I mean, Ma'im Chaim, the living waters, and the well of Miriam, and the sustenance that it brought us through the desert. And by the way, with quiet leadership, right?
Yeah.
No great miracles,
Mm-hmm.
right? No staff,
Mm-hmm.
no other prophet to speak for her, but really somebody whose presence is always there and always known, and the values that she's brought to the Jewish people are important. And this was not an easy decision. And even as we're talking, I'm really torn as to who will win.
I have no idea which way you're going to go with this, and I'm so excited to find out.
I am really, really torn, and I have to be honest. I kind of backed myself into a corner by putting Yitro up against Moses, and maybe it's because we're in the Pesach season, and maybe it's because of course Miriam. But I think in the end, Miriam, for her longevity, for her value of leading from behind, but also being able to be in front, and the values that she has brought to the table. I'm taking a deep breath because I think going into this, it was Yitro, but I think Miriam is going to indeed pull out the victory and will stand atop the bracket as the winner.
Wow. Well, that is quite the result. Maybe not what we expected, but of course, we always know, like, it's how a team or a biblical character is doing at that time of the season, that time of year, and we're entering into Miriam's time of the year. So maybe a
is.
little bit of help on the side for her. But
It is definitely that time of year. And again, maybe had you picked, we've done this in February and I just finished reading, it's Shul, Parshat Yitro, or, even, studying the Joseph story or others. But again, I think this was an unexpected challenge for me. And I really appreciate the opportunity to think about these characters in different ways. And it really could have gone, honestly, either way between Yitro, Miriam, or even some of the others. Again, I talked about Caleb as being, really the dark horse. Had Caleb been in a different bracket, he himself really could have wound up in the finals. So I really, and Betzalel too, by the way. I as much as I know he didn't make it out of the first round, but Betzalel in another bracket could have made it, to at least the quarterfinals as well. So I really appreciate it. It's been quite fun, Rabbi Danny.
I think Miriam is a really worthy winner of our first Biblical March Madness bracket here at Temple Shir Tikva. We are so grateful to you, Rabbi Greg, for being our judge, the adjudicator, the actual arbiter of who would win in all of these contests. Not an easy task. And
not an easy task. And in spite of, certain people reaching out, not going to name any names, Nick O'Donnell, Matt Langweber. I mean, in certain people reaching out, I really, yes, it was fun to be able to do this for the first time. So thank you. It was such a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you for being part of our inaugural Biblical March Madness here at Temple Shir Tikva. From all of us here at TSPN Studios, thank you to Rabbi Greg. We say a thank you to John Legg, who's been doing all of the tech in the background. And we hope you'll join us next season. But for now, we celebrate our champion, Miriam, the winner of this first Biblical March Madness. And thank you again, Rabbi Greg.